This story was sent in by a colleague of mine. He had stayed at a friend's house and watched a lot of film and played a lot of games, a lot of video games. And it was getting late, and he said, "You know what? Don't bother going home. Just stay here. We'll have something to eat." So they ordered some pizza, and Buddy decided to spend the night there. So told him where he'd be sleeping. But throughout the night, everything was cool, nothing unusual, nothing paranormal. Except when he went upstairs to use the bathroom, when he looked down the hall, he said he had this eerie feeling in the hallway, but he just figured, it's a new place, new surroundings. So he just left it as that, went to use the bathroom and came back down. So when the time came, his friend showed him where he was going to spend the night. So he walked him down the hall, and just past the washroom there was a door. He opened the door up, and there was a single bed with a dresser and some albums and a crate on the floor and some other knickknacks and stuff. So he gave him a blanket and said, "Here, this is where you'll be spending the night. We'll see you in the morning." And then things got interesting. So with sleeping over in a strange room, strange bed, you're always going to, be up for a little while and just kind of think, lay down there. You pay more attention to what's going on around your surroundings. So he got up to use the bathroom, and when he came out of the bathroom, he said he felt this weird feeling again, and he looked down the hall, and it was just so strange, and he just thought maybe it's just him. He's a little nervous, a little anxious. He's been to his friend's house many times, but he's never stayed there the night. And it was just, again, probably chalk it up to being in a different place, different rooms, and different settings. So he goes back and tries to go to sleep, and eventually he does fall asleep, he said. But then he woke up again in the middle of the night, and he said, "Well, I gotta go to the bathroom again." He goes, "I didn't drink that much beer, but oh well." So he got up and walked out of the door, and he turns to go to the bathroom, and now he's getting that feeling again. He's feeling a little bit like nauseated and kind of like things are just kind of off, and he's thinking maybe he had something bad on the pizza or anything. So just walked over and knocked on his buddy's door, and after a few knocks, he answered, and he said, "Hey man, are you feeling sick or anything from like the food or anything?" And his friend answered, says, No, I'm fine." He goes, "So why, what's wrong?" And he said, "No, I just feel uneasy though. My stomach's a little queasy, and I get this weird feeling, and I've been up a couple of times to go to the bathroom." And so the friend asked him, said, "Well, you're free to check the medicine cabinet there in the bathroom." He says, "I've got some medications to help with stomach acid and whatnot. If you want, you can take some of that." So anyway, he left it as that, went back into the room. So he's laying there, and this is where it gets really, really, really like creepy, spooky. He said he fell asleep, and then sometime during the night, he said he opened his eyes, got up off the bed, said he walked to his door, turned that door knob, turned the corner, and he said that the whole hallway was red. It was glowing red. But he felt attracted to it. Something was pulling him in like a magnet. So he walked down the hall. And right at the end of the hall, he said it was like a portal. He said he just walked right through it. He says he doesn't know why, but he just felt that he had to. So he walks through this portal. And what he sees is going to freak you out. As soon as he steps through, he starts to hear a lot of chanting and drums and other wind instruments and people dressed in red and black cloaks. And they're all chanting his name. His name's Ben. So he's walking through and he's looking at everyone and he can't see their faces. But he tries to make his way through the crowd, but they're all following him. So he feels real uneasy. He's wondering if he's having a nightmare or like a bad dream or something. All of a sudden, he snaps out of it and he's lying in the bed again and he's staring up at the ceiling. He's like, oh my God, that was a bad dream. What just happened here? So he's recalling the events of what happened, and he still feels that uneasy feeling. So he gets up to go to the bathroom, and as soon as he opens the door, there standing in the doorway is a hooded figure. From head to toe in a dark cloak. He fell back in shock, went and sat on the bed and started freaking out, and this hooded figure walked into the room and shut the door behind him. And Ben was like, this isn't real, this can't be real. He says, I'm not dreaming, but at the same time, I can't believe I'm saying this. Just then, the hooded figure moves closer to him, pulls the hood back, and Ben sees a guy standing there with his face like a plaster face in white. He could make out the two eye slots and the mouth. And that was it. Ben started freaking out and calling for his friend, and the hooded figure suddenly disappeared. His friend came running into the room and said, my God, what's going on? He says, what's all the yelling about? And Ben says to him, I just saw a hooded figure standing here in front of me, man. He says, I'm tripping out. There's all kinds of weird things happening here. And his friend said, listen, that's something I got to tell you here. He says, I've had a few people over before and they felt kind of uneasy. I don't want to freak you out, but they tend to keep seeing this hooded figure in the hallways of the house at night. And then Ben said, I had this dream, I think it was a dream, where I woke up and went down the hall and everything was red, and I went through this portal and I was inside a room, and it was also like a red room. It was glowing, and people were walking around in red and black hoods and chanting, and I heard some music and drums, and they kept following me. So his friend got really freaked out too and said, look, man, I'm really sorry you're going through this, but he says, unfortunately, he says, there is something weird going on in the house. He says, man, look, if you're not feeling comfortable, I'll drive you home, not a problem. But yeah, I don't want you to, be scared. So Ben said, you know what, maybe I'll just go downstairs and sleep on your couch or something. And maybe this way, I can probably get some sleep down there. So they both agreed. He went down into the couch, and that's where he spent the rest of the night. This is about 3 o'clock in the morning, 2:30, 3 o'clock. So finally he fell asleep. And then all of a sudden, he felt that uneasy feeling again, so he woke up, he says. And he walked up the stairs, back up to the hallway, and the whole hallway was glowing in red, like pulsating. And down at the end of the hall again, he saw that entranceway, that doorway, and he got drawn into it again. So off he went down the hall, and he heard the chanting and the drums beating. And he looked around and saw nobody. And he felt kind of weird because last time it was a different experience, but this time he was alone in this red room. And then all of a sudden a hooded figure comes out of nowhere and confronts him and says to him, you've been chosen tonight to be part of our initiation. So Ben freaked out and says, I didn't sign up for anything, man. He says, I don't know what's going on here. But the hooded figure made it clear that it was going to happen. Ben thinks he's having a bad dream, so he's going to ride this out, and then he'll wake up. Probably a form of lucid dreaming. Then all of a sudden, 2 hooded figures in red come over, grab him, and they bring him over into a slate of marble, like a table. And they laid him down there. And then suddenly, out of the shadows, all these hooded figures came and surrounded him. and drums were being beaten, and there was some wind instruments playing, and people were chanting, and he was getting really freaked out, and he started to force himself to wake up. Problem was, he wasn't waking up, and he couldn't tell if this was real or was a dream. Then he started to scream and yell and yell and yell, and nothing happened. He said these hooded figures started to splash him with certain liquids. Some of them were foul smelling, like things that were rotting, and he started to freak out and try to wake himself up, but he couldn't wake up. And then the hooded figure leaned in and said to him in his ear, "You've been confined here for eternity." That's when Ben lost it, and he got up and tried to make his way out of that red room. And as he's about to get through that portal, he gets grabbed by what seemed like hundreds of hands, grabbing him and dragging him back into the room. And Ben's screaming and screaming and screaming and screaming, and all of a sudden, just like that, the red room goes away, his friend standing literally 3 feet from him, and says, "Ben, you're sleepwalking." He said, "I thought you were downstairs." He goes, "I was." He goes, "You'll never believe what happened." His friend said, "You were downstairs sleeping." Says, "I saw you walk by. I figured you went to use the bathroom. But then you didn't come back for a while, and I was wondering what was going on. Next thing I know, you're standing in the hall and you're yelling." So at this point, neither of them figured they would be getting any sleep that night, so they both went downstairs, turned on the TV, got a couple of beers, some snacks, and just talked about what happened.